Please be seated. Mr. Clayman, proceed.
May it please the court, Judge Michael Pendleton. Let me explain what it is that we're doing here today. We're doing it on behalf of the American people. As it says in our Declaration of Independence, when in the course of human events, the sovereign, in this case the legal system ruled by the sovereign, the current government, does not represent the people, that the people have a right, under the laws of nature and nature's God, to alter or abolish that government and to form a new government by and for the people, with equal rights for everyone in pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Freedom Watch, the group that I founded, previously having founded Judicial Watch, is holding a Third Continental Congress to discuss whether or not we need to declare independence again, and I believe that we do. Our delegates met on July 5th and 6th of last year in Philadelphia at Independence Hall, and this is being discussed. And one of the things that we are discussing in terms of fine-tuning our Constitution after independence is declared is to have a legal system that actually functions. Now, with or without independence, we have the right to indict, to try, and to seek convictions, and to sentence and carry out sentences pursuant to the laws of nature and nature's God, as well as man-made law. You will see during this trial here today, Your Honor, that the defendants, Joseph Biden, Hunter Biden, James Biden, and later trial after that, Anthony Fauci, have committed crimes. These crimes were indicted. They were indicted for these crimes. In fact, under the decision written by Justice Antonin Scalia, may his soul rest in peace, United States versus Williams, where he held for the majority of the Supreme Court that the grand jury process belongs to the American people, not the three branches of government. We had the right to seek an indictment of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and James Biden for a racketeering scheme for accepting bribes from communist China, from Russia, and Ukraine before President Zelensky came to power in Ukraine. We obtained that indictment. We then gave notice of the indictment, which is called an arraignment, to these defendants. We gave them an opportunity to plead guilty, not guilty, or nolo contendere. They did not show up, and I'm going to show you the documentation in that regard, and I'm going to ask Judge Pendleton, who is the citizen's judge, to read the indictment on these bribery charges. Joe Biden was also indicted for negligent homicide and other alleged crimes with regard to Afghanistan, when in a hastily arranged withdrawal of Afghanistan, U.S. servicemen, our brave heroes, died, and when he ordered a drone strike on 10 Afghan allies, killing 7 of their young children. That case is not only proceeding in this citizen's court, but before the International Criminal Court, because I filed a complaint there on behalf of Freedom Watch, asking that that be investigated as well. And we're going to show you documentation that the International Criminal Court is in fact investigating alleged war crimes by Joe Biden. We have a plethora of evidence to provide to Judge Pendleton to make a decision on whether or not these defendants should be convicted or not. He has taken an oath of office, and he will do so again in front of the people of this country, that he will abide by the law, nature's law and God's law and man's law, and reach a just decision. Now, we gave the defendants an opportunity to come forward and to plead, as I said, guilty, not guilty, or nolo contendere, which means no contest. They chose not to. They disrespect the power of the people in this country. They disrespect the power of yours truly, the citizen's prosecutor, and the judge, Judge Pendleton. Consequently, we are under no obligation to even have a trial. They defaulted on these criminal charges, and we're going to read the indictments. But we entered a plea of not guilty on their behalf in any event. Now, they haven't requested a jury trial, so consequently, there's no jury here today. The judge will make the decision. And we will put this before the court of public opinion, before you, the American people, to decide for yourselves whether what we're doing is just or not. But we're here peacefully and legally, because unless we have a legal system that will stand up for the rights of the American people, to stand up for the right of the American people to have honest government and honest leaders, and not criminals running our society and our body politic, then this country will fall into an abyss of corruption and will cease to exist. Already we're dangerously close to that. Joe Biden has had the helm of our government for a year and a half. Already this country is on its knees. But this is not retribution for his negligent policy decisions in any other respect than what we will hold him accountable for in the indictment. The indictment, not just for bribery with his son Hunter and his brother James, but also for negligent homicide in Afghanistan. And when we get to the later trial of Anthony Fauci, same process is in place. He was indicted before a citizens' grand jury. Notice was given. He was not an opportunity to plead guilty, not guilty, or nolo contendere. He also lacks respect for the power of the American people, for our own authority. We, the people, run this country, not vice versa. And when our justice system totally abdicates its responsibility and becomes corrupt, and I'm a former Justice Department prosecutor, a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T, the AT&T monopoly. I prosecuted civil and criminal cases, and have had criminal cases in my private practice in the last several years in particular. When that justice system fails, when it protects the rich, the powerful, the elite, the establishments in Washington, D.C., and in state capitals around the country, it is time for the American people to rise up and to mete out justice themselves. And that is why we are here today. I then turn it over to Judge Pendleton to take his oath of office. Do you solemnly swear that you will adjudicate this proceeding fairly, according to the laws of nature and nature's God, and man-made law, to the best of your ability? Judge Pendleton.
I do.
Thank you. I'm now going to ask Judge Pendleton to read the indictment of Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and James Biden for bribery, for alleged bribery, and also for negligent homicide. But before I do that, I want to show the American people that not only was this indictment issued by a citizens' grand jury, signed by a foreperson, but that we gave notice to the defendants, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., that's the name of our president, Robert Hunter Biden, that's his son, and James Biden, that they could appear and actually defend themselves. And this notice went out and said that they could indeed plead guilty, not guilty, or nolo contendere. We're going to put that up on the screen, and you'll have an opportunity to see it. We also gave them further notice that we were holding a trial today, that they could appear and defend themselves. Now you can see no one is present. Absolutely no one is present. That's a vacant chair. So we will proceed on behalf of the American people. And if we obtain a conviction, and there'll be a written opinion in that regard, a very well-reasoned written opinion, one way or the other, either convicting these defendants or not convicting these defendants, they will have an opportunity to make their case. Even at that point, we will give it to them before that becomes final. But the fact is that the American people hold our own fate, our own destiny in our own hands. And as we allege, when the President of the United States, through his son Hunter, laundered monies, and his brother James, accepts gratuities from foreign nations, this puts our national security at risk, and is also just rank corruption that we cannot tolerate. It is ironic that just today, the Prime Minister of England had to resign based on a number of scandals that were occurring in his country. In this country, we find it difficult to remove a chief executive officer such as a president. We've never done it in our history of 6 years at this point. It is hoped that a conviction here and carrying out that conviction can bring about justice such that President Biden will resign from office and that these other defendants will be held accountable legally. But that's not the primary purpose of this. primary purpose is to mete out justice because everybody in this country has to be treated equally. And we are providing due process, and we are doing it according to the law. Now, I now ask Judge Pendleton to read the indictments of Joseph Biden, of Hunter Biden, and of James Biden, and of Joseph Biden in particular with regard to Afghanistan. The first indictment deals with the bribery scheme from Communist China, Ukraine, and Russia.
Of Sinohawk. On May 13, 2017, I received an email concerning allocation of equity, which says 10% held by H for the big guy. In that email, there's no question that H stands for Hunter, big guy for his father, Joe Biden, and Jim for Jim Biden.
Businessman who was asked by the Biden family to do business with them in China. He met with the former Vice President Joe Biden 2 separate times, and they talked about the China business deal.
As I referenced earlier, I'm only sitting here because they have not only have they not gone on record, they've denied it, and they've tarred my family name in a long history of serving this country, and have other congressmen now talking about Russian disinformation.
This whole smear on Joe Biden comes from the Kremlin.
I held a top secret clearance from the NSA and the DOE. I served this country for 4 years in one of the most elite environments in the world, Naval Nuclear Power Training Command. And to have a
What is the big takeaway from the discoveries of Hunter Biden's laptop?
The number one thing is that this is really not a story about Hunter Biden. It's about Joe Biden. And it's about the influence peddling scheme that he ran out of Delaware from his very earliest days as a senator 4 decades ago, and then internationalized when he became vice president. And President Obama gave him carriage for, some pretty important parts of the world, such as China and Russia, Ukraine, and those places were the countries where his family took the most amount of money. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars.
President Joe Biden vowing revenge after a terror attack in Afghanistan killed 13 U.S. service members. But the Biden administration is sticking to the plan to withdraw all troops from Afghanistan.
We will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay.
To other news here this Friday night, the Pentagon now admitting the deadly drone strike in the last days of the U.S. withdrawal from Kabul was a, quote, tragic mistake. 10 civilians, including 7 children, killed in the blast. Here's our chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz.
Tonight, the U.S. military admitting to a horrific mistake that left 7 innocent children and 3 innocent adults, including an aid worker for an American company, dead.
I offer my profound condolences to the family and friends of those who were killed. Our investigation now concludes that the strike was a tragic mistake.
Now, in terms of the Biden administration, you stay in contact regularly with members that are still in the military and, of course, retired admirals and generals and other servicemen, correct?
Correct.
So you stay up to date on what's happening with our military.
Correct.
Is it your understanding, based on your knowledge and information that's been provided to you, that President Biden played a role in whole or in part, based upon the policy and practices of the Biden administration, in ordering the drone strike on the 10 Afghan allies after 13 GIs were killed at Kabul airport?
That's what I understand. Yes, and it was processed through the Central Command, MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, outside of Tampa. Central Command, of course, responsible for all the operations in the Middle East and specifically in Afghanistan at that time.
Now, what are the ramifications of our leaving $85 billion worth of equipment in Afghanistan? And what are the ramifications with regard to terrorist activity and terrorist groups that remain in Afghanistan? What is the implications for the United States? What information do you have, if any, of Dr. Anthony Fauci's personal or professional interest in doing all of these things that we're talking about, in terms of helping to finance the Wuhan lab, in terms of promoting gain-of-function research, in terms of pushing vaccines off on the American public without them having full information? What is his personal or professional interest in doing this, other than the fact that he claims to be the czar of pandemics and the highest paid American official in government?
It is a wonderful question. And again, we don't have the answers to that. So there was a law passed in the 1980s, the Dole-By Act, okay, which my co-author, Judy Mikovits, believes to be one of the most corrupting influences in all of public health. And what it holds is that scientists who work on research while government employees can take an interest in any products that they develop, okay? So supposedly Anthony Fauci, in addition to running the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, claims to be an author of over 1,100 articles. Well, I've worked with Dr. Frank Ruscetti, who is approximately the same age and has dedicated his life to medical research, and he is extremely prolific. And he says that only being a researcher, he was able to generate somewhere over 350 peer-reviewed articles in his 38-year career. So the idea that Fauci would be the author on 1,100 articles while running the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases is laughable. So specifically to your question, the question has been put to Fauci, how many patents he is listed on and what he is getting from those, okay? The response from the National Institutes of Health is Dr. Fauci donates all that to charities. And so then when they say, oh, could we see a listing of all that money going to the charities, the NIH refuses to provide that information. So it is suspected that he is personally benefiting from this, but it is also, but there's a bigger question than a straight corruption angle here, which is that these czars of medicine have set themselves up above the American public such that they can never be questioned in the same manner that you and I are. So I'm very comfortable saying I don't know the answer to these questions, but I'm also comfortable saying these questions deserve to be answered, and the failure to answer them should raise significant questions in the mind of the public.
Would you say it raises an inference that he's personally benefiting from what the gain-of-function research and other activities that are related to COVID-19 at the Wuhan lab?
I would say 100%.
Is your testimony headed to the point that Tony Fauci played a direct role and a substantial role in creating the seeds of COVID-19 through his gain-of-function research that began in the United States?
Absolutely, it's more than that. It began in the United States in 1980 with HIV.